All right, everybody. Good evening. Hope you guys are doing well tonight. We got to talk a little bit about these Washington Huskies coming off their first loss of the season, traveling across the country to play the Maryland Terrapins in a game that I would kind of consider to be the first reasonable test, if that makes sense. Like, I know that Ohio State game was technically close. I know UW hung around until the fourth quarter, but even with that, I think that a reasonable person would conclude that going up against probably the best team in the country is not a really fair litmus test. Like, you as a fan of this Huskies team that is obviously trying to rebuild a little bit after the national championship run a couple years ago, would not look at that game and say, okay, I need to see this Huskies team beat Ohio State to prove themselves. Nor would you look at the first three games of the season that Washington won and go, they really proved anything. So this is going to be kind of the first game where I think we can start to kind of narrow down what the team is and what we can expect this season for sure. Before I get into it, though, let me tell you guys about Sleeper back in 60 seconds. All right, guys, let's take a minute so I can tell you about Sleeper, a one-stop shop for all your sports needs. You can celebrate and chat on sports games in real time with other users. You can get the fastest scores, blazing fast sports news and sports alerts right at your fingertips. And of course, you can use Sleeper to play in fantasy leagues and win real money on picks contests. This is the way sports were meant to be enjoyed together. So download Sleeper today. Use promo code SBN to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. And you can pair that with another promo they have right now where you can get a $20 entry free with no deposit required. So get both of those things going. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states and growing. So check out Sleeper today, get to it, and go have some fun with sports this year. All right, welcome back. So first, real quick, I will, or at least I plan on doing a live stream of this game tomorrow afternoon. So come watch me do play-by-play. We'll talk about the game. I won't be putting the game on screen, obviously, but I will be doing the typical play-by-play and discussion, and you guys can watch along with me. And basically, we'll just have a good time for about 3.5 hours. And yeah. I think you guys kind of know how I like to do these Huskies games, but definitely tune in for that. Should be a very informative and educational game. I'm excited for that, so definitely come watch it with me. But Maryland, they're another team that's a little bit hard to really figure out at the moment. They're 4-0. They're not ranked because they've had a pretty easy path to 4-0. The best team they've beaten so far is probably Wisconsin, and Wisconsin's not very good this year. So they've had 3 really easy games, kind of like Washington, and then they beat Wisconsin, which that might mean something. It's hard to know. I don't think Wisconsin's as bad as the UC Davises of the world, of course, but that's probably a game that you're expecting to win if you're any kind of a competitive team at this point. So I don't know what we've learned about Maryland. Their defense has been nails so far this year. They've allowed less than 11 points a game so far, and I understand that their competition's been at a pretty low level, but Washington gave up some points to Colorado State and Wazoo. So you can still give up points against weak competition if your defense isn't that great. And I think that through that, you kind of learn that Maryland's defense is significantly better than Washington. So the defense seems relatively legitimate. The offense, they can't run the ball, which maybe Washington can take advantage of that a little bit. They've had a pretty efficient passing attack so far this year. Their offense has been all right, but they average barely 100 rushing yards a game, and that kind of sticks out when they've had such easy competition so far this year. Usually when you're playing weak competition, you pile up big rushing stats because you're playing from ahead the whole game. And Maryland, despite that, has not been able to do anything more than 100 yards per game. So I'm not really worried about their rushing attack, so that's kind of nice. But I do like their passing attack. They've got 3 good receivers that have all been pretty productive so far this year. They've got some stuff going on there that I think is notable. Even if it's not near the best in the country, it's still pretty good. So the Terrapins, they seem like I don't want to read too much into a very soft schedule they played so far this year, but I do think that defense is pretty legitimate, and I do think that the passing attack is legitimate. Now, none of that is really, to me, the big deal about this game. To me, the big deal about this game is going on the road. And this is something that Washington really struggled with last year. They were great at home. They won all their home games last year. They finally lost their home game win streak this year against Ohio State, which, I mean, yeah, that's really not that surprising. But can you go on the road and win a game like this? That is, I think, what we're really going to learn tomorrow. And if they can do it, I'll give them a lot of credit for it, because this is exactly the kind of game that, as a Huskies fan, intimidates me about this new world of college football where you don't have a Pac-12, where you're going to have to play a decent chunk of your games on really, really, really uncomfortable circumstances, under really uncomfortable circumstances, where not only are you traveling a long distance, but you're going to play in an environment that you are so unfamiliar with. And it's definitely something that can just suck the energy out of the room, because obviously this Huskies team depends heavily on their offense. But you're going on the road to play, I think, a very good defense, and you've got to deal with the travel. You've got to deal with playing in a hostile environment. Like, this is definitely where things can go wrong, and it wouldn't surprise me. It would not shock me if this kind of turned into like when we played Iowa last year, and it felt like the game could have been competitive, but it's like that Midwest, and I know this isn't a Midwest game, but if anything, it could be worse. It just sucks the energy out of you as a West Coast team. So I want to see how this team responds to that challenge. I think that's going to be the really interesting thing here. Can Washington's offense bring it almost 3,000 miles away from home? That intimidates me as much as Maryland's really good defense does, I think. So we're going to learn a lot. I think we can win. I feel decent about this game. I don't feel amazing about this game. Not at all. I know we're favored. I know that most people are probably going to pick us, but I am not sitting here feeling super comfortable with anything. So what I'm going to say is we're going to have a pretty good idea of what this team is after this game. We're coming off a loss, so it's not like this can be a letdown game or a trap game. And Maryland's good enough to where they shouldn't be a trapped team anyway. If we win this game, then I'm going to believe that Washington's on the right track here. I'm going to believe that they are headed in the right direction with enough pace to satiate me. But if this is the game we lose, then I'm just going to feel like it's basically the same team as last year. Yeah, they're more exciting. They probably have a better offense, but they're going to have the same problems, and they're going to end up in a roughly similar place. Maybe they get to 7 wins instead of 6, but it'll be the same basic idea. So this is the best learning opportunity we've had this season. Hope to find out what's up. So I'll see you guys later. Bow down to Washington. Let's get this win, and let's go to 4-1.